Chigozie Okafor froze inside the darkened hallway of his Lagos mansion. He had returned early to surprise his fiancée, but the home felt strangely silent. Beside a locked study, the young maid Ifunanya stood barefoot and trembling, tears shining in her terrified eyes. Before Chigozie could speak, a child whimpered behind the door. Ifunanya quickly pressed a finger to her lips. "Please, sir, say nothing. If she knows you heard that child, it may already be too late." Then footsteps approached from the staircase. Who was being hidden inside Chigozie's home, and what had his future wife done? Before we begin, tell us which country you're watching from and your local time. Subscribe and join us for this unforgettable story. 3 days before Chigozie Okafor stood in that dark hallway, he was more than 6,000 kilometers away from Lagos, seated beside a wide hotel window overlooking the grey morning streets of London. A folder filled with contracts rested open on the table before him, but his attention had wandered to a photograph on his phone. In it, Nkiruka Obasi stood beneath the flowering jacaranda tree in the garden of his Lagos mansion. She wore a white dress and smiled at the camera, one hand raised to shield her eyes from the sun. In 12 weeks, she would become his wife. Chigozie had spent most of his adult life building Okafor Meridian Holdings, a logistics company that had grown from 2 rented trucks into one of West Africa's largest privately owned transport networks. Wealth had brought him comfort, influence, and invitations from people who once refused to return his calls. It had not brought him peace. Nkiruka appeared to offer that. She was educated, elegant, and confident. She knew how to make important guests feel welcome and could move through a crowded charity dinner without forgetting a single name. When Chigozie's mother died 2 years earlier, Nkiruka had sat beside him through the funeral and remained close during the lonely months that followed. He believed he knew her heart. That morning, his assistant Uche Maduka entered the hotel suite carrying a tablet. "The final meeting has been moved to Friday," Uche said. "The investors want more time to review the revised agreement." Chigozie closed the folder. "Then they can review it without me." Uche studied him. "You plan to remain until Sunday." "I have been away for nearly 3 weeks. Nkiruka thinks I will not return until Monday night." A quiet smile softened Chigozie's face. "I want to surprise her." Uche knew there was little point arguing once his employer had decided something. He rearranged this flight and promised to keep the return secret. Back in Lagos, morning sunlight washed across the polished floors of Chigozie's mansion in Ikoyi. From the outside, the house appeared peaceful. Bougainvillea climbed along the cream-colored walls. Gardeners trimmed the hedges, and security officers watched the gate. Inside, Ifunanya Eze carried a breakfast tray upstairs with both hands. At 27, Ifunanya had learned how to make herself almost invisible. She walked quietly, spoke only when necessary, and never allowed exhaustion to slow her while Nkiruka was watching. Her pale blue uniform had been repaired twice at the sleeve, but it remained clean and carefully pressed. She stopped outside the second-floor study. The door was locked. A faint sound came from within. Ifunanya Nkiruka's voice caused her to turn sharply. Chigozie's fiancée stood at the end of the corridor in a fitted green dress. Her expression was calm, but her eyes immediately moved from the tray to the locked door. "Why are you standing there?" "I brought the breakfast you requested, madam." "I told you to leave it in my room." "Yes, madam." "Then why are you listening at that door?" Ifunanya lowered her gaze. "I was not listening." Nkiruka approached slowly. "Do not lie to me in this house." Before Ifunanya could answer, something lightly struck the other side of the door. It was followed by a muffled cough. Neither woman moved. Nkiruka's face hardened. She took the tray from Ifunanya and placed it on a side table. "You heard nothing." Ifunanya's fingers tightened around the edge of her apron. "Yes, madam." Nkiruka stepped closer. Look at me when I speak to you. Ifunanya raised her eyes. You need this position, don't you? The question carried a threat because Nkiruka knew the answer. Ifunanya's younger brother, Obina, had a serious heart condition. His medication, hospital visits, and laboratory tests consumed almost everything she earned. 2 months earlier, Chigozie had approved a salary advance after hearing that Obina had been admitted to the hospital. Nkiruka had presented the money to Ifunanya as though it had come from her personally. Yes, Madame, Ifunanya whispered. And your brother still needs treatment? Yes. Then remain grateful. Complete your duties and stay away from matters that do not concern you. Nkiruka unlocked the study with a small brass key, slipped inside, and shut the door before Ifunanya could see beyond her shoulder. A minute later, Nkiruka emerged carrying the tray. 1 cup of tea was missing. Ifunanya said nothing. For the rest of the day, the mansion continued its carefully rehearsed routine. Food was prepared, rooms were cleaned, flowers were arranged, and calls concerning the wedding arrived every hour. Yet beneath that ordinary movement, fear lived quietly. Ifunanya had first heard the child 6 nights earlier. She had been folding linen when a small voice called for water from behind the locked study. When she told Nkiruka, she was ordered to forget it. The next morning, Nkiruka claimed that her cousin's daughter was staying temporarily because of family problems. But no child had been seen entering the mansion. No clothes had been delivered. No relative had visited. There was no laughter, no playing, and no sound except occasional crying when Nkiruka was away from the corridor. That evening, Ifunanya entered the kitchen and found a covered plate beside the sink. Rice, vegetables, and a piece of grilled fish had been arranged on it. Take this upstairs, Nkiruka instructed from the doorway. To the study, Nkiruka's stare sharpened. Ifunanya immediately lowered her head. Yes, madam. Nkiruka gave her the brass key. Open the door, place the food on the desk, and leave. Do not ask questions. Do not touch anything. Ifunanya carried the plate upstairs. Her heartbeat grew heavier with each step. The study smelled of closed windows and stale air. Curtains had been drawn across the glass. Books lined the walls, and a blanket lay folded on a leather sofa. A little girl sat on the carpet beside the desk. She could not have been older than 8. Her hair was braided close to her scalp, and she wore a yellow dress that looked too large for her narrow shoulders. She stared at Ifunanya with frightened brown eyes. What is your name? Ifunanya whispered. The girl glanced toward the door before answering. Oluchi. Where is your family? My mother is in the village. Her voice shook. Auntie Nkiruka said I would see her after the hospital sent the money. Before Ifunanya could ask, more footsteps sounded in the corridor. The girl seized her wrist. Please don't leave me alone. The fear in Oluchi's face pierced something deep inside Ifunanya. For one painful moment, she saw Obina as a child, clinging to her after their father's death. I will come back, she promised. Ifunanya hurried out just as Nkiruka reached the doorway. What did she tell you? Nothing, madam. She only said her name. Nkiruka searched her expression, then took back the key. That night, Ifunanya lay awake in the small staff room behind the kitchen. She knew she should contact Chigozie. He had always treated the workers fairly, and he deserved to know what was happening beneath his own roof. But Nkiruka controlled the household whenever he traveled. She knew the hospital caring for Obina. She knew Ifunanya's neighborhood and every weakness poverty had forced her to reveal. Ifunanya opened Chigozie's contact on her phone and began typing. Sir, there is something happening in your house. She stopped when a shadow moved beneath her door. A folded note slid silently into the room. Ifunanya waited until the footsteps disappeared before picking it up. Written across the paper were 7 words. Your brother needs you to remain silent. At that same moment, Chigozie's aircraft was preparing to leave London. He leaned back in his seat, imagining the joy on Nkiruka's face when he entered the mansion unexpectedly. He did not know that someone inside his home was counting the hours until his return, and someone else was terrified that he might come back too soon. Kethuk Fan 2. Fan Thi. Ifunanya did not sleep after reading the note. She remained seated on the edge of her narrow bed, listening to the refrigerator humming beyond the staffroom wall. The paper trembled between her fingers. Your brother needs you to remain silent. Only a few people knew where Obina was receiving treatment. Chigozie knew because he had approved her salary advance. Nkiruka knew because she had demanded copies of the hospital bills. The household accountant knew, but he had never spoken directly to Ifunanya. She tore the note into small pieces, then stopped before throwing them away. Evidence mattered. She placed the fragments inside an old envelope and hid it beneath her mattress. At 5 the next morning, Ifunanya left the mansion during her permitted break and took a crowded bus to the public hospital in Surulere. Lagos was only beginning to wake, but roadside vendors were already arranging breadfruit and sachets of water beneath faded umbrellas. Obina was 21, though illness often made him look younger. He sat beside a window in the cardiology ward, wearing a loose gray shirt and reading from a borrowed engineering textbook. His face brightened when she entered. You came before breakfast again. I wanted to see you. You saw me 2 days ago, and I will see you 2 days from now if I choose. He smiled, but she noticed the tiredness beneath it. Their mother had died when Obina was 9, leaving Ifunanya to become both sister and parent. She had abandoned her plan to study nursing and taken whatever work she could find, washing clothes, serving food, cleaning offices at night. Every choice since then had been built around one question: what would keep Obina alive? How is the pain? She asked. Better. Tell me the truth. He looked away. It comes sometimes. A nurse entered with a file and explained that Obina needed another series of tests before the specialist could confirm his procedure. A deposit had to be paid within 10 days. Ifunanya examined the figure on the form. It was more than 3 months of her wages. She folded the paper carefully. I will arrange it. Obina watched her face. You always say that even when you have no idea how. And I always find a way. He reached for her hand. Ifunanya, I can leave the hospital. I can work until we save enough. No, I am not a child, and I will not bury you because you wanted to prove that. The sharpness of her reply startled them both. Ifunanya softened and pressed his hand against her cheek. You will finish your studies, she said. You will build the things you draw in those notebooks. Let me worry about the money. As she left the ward, guilt tightened around her heart. Protecting Obina had become the reason she endured everything. Now someone was using that love to keep a frightened child imprisoned. When she returned to Ikoyi, Nkiruka was waiting in the kitchen. You left early. It was my scheduled break, madam. I did not ask whether you had permission. Ifunanya remained silent. Nkiruka noticed the hospital form in her hand and took it before Ifunanya could move. Another payment. The specialist ordered more tests. How unfortunate. Nkiruka placed the form on the counter. Chigozie has already helped you. Do you expect this household to become a charity for every problem in your family? No, madam. Good. Then, earn what you are paid. She handed Ifunanya a list of tasks that would normally require 2 workers: clean the guest rooms, polish the silverware, wash the balcony windows, and reorganize the storage room before noon. Ifunanya worked without complaint. By 10 o'clock, sweat dampened the collar of her uniform. When she carried fresh towels upstairs, she heard a light knock from inside the study. 3 knocks. A pause. Then 2 more. Ifunanya looked down the corridor. Nkiruka was speaking on the telephone in the garden. She entered the kitchen, filled a bottle with water, and hid 2 pieces of bread inside a folded cloth. Returning upstairs, she unlocked the study with a spare key she had secretly discovered in the household cabinet. Oluchi was curled on the sofa. "You came back," the girl whispered. "I promised." Ifunanya gave her the water. Oluchi drank too quickly, spilling some onto her dress. Slowly. "My mother says that too. Tell me about her." Oluchi's eyes filled with longing. "Her name is Urena. She makes baskets and sells them near our church. She has been sick for a long time. Auntie Nkiruka said a rich doctor in Lagos would help her if I came to work for a little while." "What work?" "Cleaning and carrying things. But when I asked to call, Mama Auntie became angry." Ifunanya felt cold, despite the heat in the room. "Do you know the name of your village Umudaike near Auka? Do you remember your mother's number?" Oluchi shook her head. "It was written inside my school book, but they took my bag." Ifunanya removed her phone and quietly photographed the girl. She did not yet know what she would do with the image, but she needed proof. The study door suddenly opened, and Nkiruka stood there. Her gaze moved from the bread to the water bottle and finally to the phone in Ifunanya's hand. "What are you doing?" Ifunanya stepped in front of Oluchi. She was thirsty. "I gave you specific instructions. She needs fresh air. She needs to speak with her mother." Nkiruka entered and closed the door. For the first time since taking the job, Ifunanya did not lower her eyes. "You cannot keep a child locked in a room." Nkiruka's face remained composed, but anger flickered beneath it. "You know nothing about this situation. Then explain it. You are a maid. I owe you no explanation." Oluchi reached for Ifunanya's hand. That small gesture transformed Nkiruka's suspicion into fury. "Give me the phone." Ifunanya held it against her chest. Nkiruka stepped closer. "If I dismiss you today, how will you pay for those tests? How long will your brother remain in that hospital before they send him home? Obinna has done nothing to you. Then do not make him suffer for your disobedience." Nkiruka extended her hand. "The phone." Ifunanya considered refusing, but Oluchi was trembling behind her. A confrontation would only frighten the child further. She surrendered the device. Nkiruka opened the gallery, deleted the photograph, and checked the recently deleted folder before removing it permanently. "You will not enter this room again," she said. "You will not speak to Oluchi, and you will not mention her to Chigozie." "Why?" "Because Chief Emeka is handling the matter." The name was familiar. Nkiruka's uncle was a wealthy businessman who often visited the mansion when Chigozie traveled. Staff members were always ordered to leave the room during his conversations with Nkiruka. Ifunanya drew a careful breath. "Does Chief Emeka know you are keeping her here?" Nkiruka's expression changed just enough to reveal the truth. He knew. "Return to work," Nkiruka ordered. Ifunanya knelt before Oluchi and gently adjusted the collar of her dress. "I have not forgotten my promise," she whispered. Nkiruka seized her arm and pulled her toward the door. "If you approach this child again, you will leave this house with nothing. I will personally inform the hospital that no further payment will come from the Okafor family, and if you attempt to contact Chigozie, your brother may lose far more than his treatment." The threat followed Ifunanya into the corridor. Minutes later, Nkiruka called the head of security and ordered him to monitor every call Ifunanya made from the mansion. Then she contacted Chief Emeka. "She has seen the girl," Nkiruka said. A hard male voice answered through the phone. "Then remove the maid before Chigozie returns." Nkiruka glanced at the travel schedule on her desk. According to it, Chigozie would still be abroad for 4 more days. She did not know that his flight had already landed in Lagos. Chigozie left Murtala Muhammad International Airport through a private exit shortly after sunset. He had asked Usha to take the company car and luggage to the office while he traveled home in an ordinary hired vehicle. He wanted his arrival to remain a surprise. The evening traffic moved slowly through Lagos. Headlights stretched across the wet roads and vendors passed between cars with trays of plantain chips and bottled water balanced on their heads. Chigozie watched the familiar city through the window, feeling lighter than he had in weeks. He carried a small velvet box inside his jacket. It held a gold bracelet engraved with the date he and Nkiruka first met. He imagined fastening it around her wrist before dinner. At the mansion, the security officer at the gate straightened in surprise. "Sir, we were not informed you were returning." "That is the point, Chima." The officer reached for his radio, but Chigozie stopped him. "Do not announce me. I want to surprise Madame Nkiruka." Chima hesitated. His discomfort lasted only a second, yet Chigozie noticed it. "Is something wrong?" "No, sir. Everything is fine." Chigozie entered through the side door near the garden. The mansion was unusually quiet. The sitting room lights were off and no music drifted from the upper floor. He checked the time. Nkiruka was normally preparing for dinner at that hour. He placed his travel bag behind a sofa and moved toward the staircase. In the kitchen, Ifunanya was washing a plate when a junior security guard appeared at the back entrance. "The boss is home," he whispered. The plate nearly slipped from her hands. When, just now, Chima said we must not announce him. Fear rushed through Ifunanya. Nkiruka had spent the afternoon on the telephone with Chief Emeka, discussing how to move Oluchi before the end of the week. If Chigozie entered the study or demanded an explanation, without understanding the danger, Nkiruka would alert her uncle. Oluchi could disappear before anyone found her mother. Ifunanya dried her hands and hurried upstairs. She found Chigozie near the locked study looking at a covered plate on the hallway table. A child's cup stood beside it. He turned when he heard her approach. "Ifunanya." She stopped several feet away. Her pale blue uniform was wrinkled and one of her shoes had broken earlier, forcing her to walk barefoot on the polished floor. "Welcome home, sir. Why does everyone look as if I have arrived at the wrong house?" She opened her mouth, but no sound came. From behind the study door came a faint whimper. Chigozie's expression changed. He stepped toward the lock. Ifunanya moved quickly and caught his sleeve. "Sir, please." He stared at her hand until she released him. "Who is in there?" Footsteps sounded from the staircase. Ifunanya's eyes filled with terror. She pressed one finger to her lips. "Please, sir," she whispered, "say nothing. If she knows you heard that child, it may already be too late." Nkiruka's voice rose from below. "Ifunanya, where are you?" Chigozie had built his company by recognizing moments when patience revealed more than force. Although every instinct urged him to open the door, he stepped away. Ifunanya grabbed the covered plate and disappeared toward the service stairs. Chigozie moved into the guest bedroom and left the door partly open. Nkiruka reached the hallway seconds later. She looked toward the locked study, then checked both ends of the corridor. Taking a key from her pocket, she entered the room. Chigozie heard her speaking in a low, angry voice. "You must remain quiet. Do you understand me?" A child murmured something he could not hear. "Your mother will receive nothing if you cause trouble." Chigozie's hands curled into fists. He waited until Nkiruka left the study and walked downstairs before emerging. The joy he had carried from London had disappeared. In its place was a cold confusion that unsettled him more deeply than anger. He found Nkiruka in the sitting room. She had turned on the lamps and was arranging flowers when he approached from behind. "Should I help?" Nkiruka cried out and dropped a rose. "Chigozie." He smiled as though nothing were wrong. She stared at him, shock spreading across her face, before she threw her arms around his neck. "You frightened me. Why didn't you call? I wanted to see that expression." For several seconds her body remained tense against him. Then she stepped back and forced a smile. You were supposed to return on Monday. The meetings ended early. That is wonderful. But relief never reached her eyes. Chigozie gave her the velvet box. Nkiruka admired the bracelet, kissed his cheek, and asked questions about London. Her performance was polished, yet he noticed every hesitation. She kept glancing toward the staircase. When a soft noise came from above her fingers, tightened around the box. What was that, he asked. Probably one of the workers. Which worker stays upstairs? Nkiruka laughed lightly. Must we discuss the staff during your first evening home? She suggested dinner at a restaurant, but Chigozie declined, claiming exhaustion. Nkiruka immediately offered to prepare the bedroom. As she turned away, he spoke. I saw a child's cup upstairs. Nkiruka stopped. After a pause, she faced him. My cousin's daughter is staying here. Which cousin? Chinello. You met her at my uncle's birthday celebration. I remember Chinello. She has 2 sons. Nkiruka's smile faltered. It is her husband's niece. Why is the girl locked in my study? She is not locked in. The door sticks. Chigozie said nothing. Nkiruka crossed the room and touched his arm. The child has emotional difficulties. Her family asked me to keep the house quiet until a specialist can evaluate her. I did not tell you because you were handling an important agreement. It was a plausible explanation delivered with gentle concern. Months earlier, he would have accepted it immediately. Now he remembered the fear in Ifunanya's eyes. I would like to meet her, tomorrow. She is asleep. From upstairs came a sudden thud. Nkiruka looked toward the ceiling. I should check on her. I will come with you. No. The word came too quickly. Nkiruka softened her voice. Please, Chigozie. Strangers frighten her. Let me prepare her first. He nodded and pretended to accept the explanation. While Nkiruka went upstairs, Chigozie entered the kitchen. Ifunanya was chopping vegetables, though her shaking hands made the knife strike unevenly against the board. Tell me what is happening, he said quietly. She glanced toward the doorway. I cannot speak here. Is that child in danger? Ifunanya swallowed. Her name is Oluchi. Her mother may not know where she is. Why didn't you contact me? I tried. She told him about the note and the threat against Obina. She explained that Nkiruka had deleted the photograph and that Chief Emeka was involved. Before she could say more, the floor creaked above them. Act normally, Ifunanya whispered. Nkiruka entered moments later. She looked from Chigozie to the knife in Ifunanya's hand. What are you discussing? Dinner, Chigozie replied calmly. I miss Nigerian food. Nkiruka smiled, but suspicion sharpened her gaze. Later that night, Chigozie lay beside her without sleeping. Nkiruka's breathing eventually became slow and steady. He waited another hour, then quietly left the bedroom. The hallway was dark. As he approached the study, the child began to cry, not loudly, but with the exhausted sorrow of someone who had learned that no one answered. Chigozie placed his palm against the locked door. I hear you, he whispered. You are not alone. The crying stopped. Behind him, a light suddenly came on. Ketthuk Fan. 4. Fan 5. Chigozie turned slowly. Ifunanya stood near the service staircase with one hand on the light switch. She wore an old cardigan over her nightclothes and carried a glass of water. I am sorry, sir, she whispered. I saw you leave your room. Chigozie looked toward the bedroom he shared with Nkiruka. The door remained closed. Do you have the key? Ifunanya shook her head. Madam took the spare after finding me inside. Then I will wake her and demand it. Please do not. A child is locked behind this door. I know, but Chief Emeka could have her removed before morning if Madam warns him. This is my house. and the people helping them do not live in this house. Chigozie's frustration flared. He was accustomed to solving problems through authority, money, or law. Yet Ifunanya understood something he did not. Poor and powerless people could be made to disappear while wealthy men were still deciding which official to call. "How long has Oluchi been here?" he asked. "At least 6 nights. Perhaps longer. She told me Madame Nkiruka brought her from a village near Auka. Why she said her mother was promised medical care. I do not know anything else." A small hand touched the other side of the door. "Is somebody there?" Oluchi whispered. Chigozie lowered himself until his face was level with the lock. "My name is Chigozie. This is my home." The child became silent. "I will not hurt you," he continued. "I only want to help. Are you Auntie Nkiruka's husband?" "Not yet." "Please do not tell her I was crying." The fear in Oluchi's voice cut through him. "Did she hurt you?" Ifunanya touched his shoulder and shook her head urgently. Even a gentle question could make the child panic. Chigozie changed his tone. "You do not have to answer. Try to rest. I promise you will not remain alone." Footsteps moved inside the bedroom. Ifunanya switched off the light and hurried downstairs. Chigozie returned to the main suite moments before Nkiruka opened the door. "Where were you?" she asked. "I needed water. You could have awakened me." He walked past her and lay down. "You seemed tired." Nkiruka remained in the doorway, studying the dark corridor before closing it. By morning, she had recovered her composure. She ordered breakfast to be served on the garden terrace and dressed in a cream blouse with tailored trousers. To anyone watching, she appeared to be the attentive woman Chigozie believed he would marry. "I spoke to Chinello," she said while pouring coffee. "She agrees you may meet the girl after the specialist visits." "What specialist, Dr. Balogan?" "What kind of doctor is he?" "A child therapist." Chigozie set down his cup. "Give me his number." Nkiruka's hand paused above the sugar bowl. "Why I would like to understand the child's condition before she continues staying here. There is no reason to interfere in a private family matter. She is living behind a locked door in my home. It became my matter the moment I discovered her." Nkiruka leaned back. "You have been away for weeks, Chigozie. I have handled this household alone. Now you return and question me as though I am some criminal." He wanted to tell her what he had heard. Instead, he remembered Ifunanya's warning. "I am asking because I care about you." Her expression softened slightly. "Oluchi witnessed a terrible conflict between her parents," she said. "She runs away, breaks things, and sometimes becomes violent. Her relatives fear the community will shame them, so they asked me to help quietly." "Why did Oluchi say her mother was waiting for hospital money?" Nkiruka's eyes widened. The question had escaped before Chigozie could reconsider it. "When did she tell you that?" She spoke through the door. Nkiruka stood abruptly. "You approached her after I asked you not to. I heard a child crying. You should have called me. I did not realize I required permission to walk through my own house." For a moment, the graceful mask fell away. Anger hardened in Nkiruka's face, but she quickly controlled it. "Oluchi's mother is ill," she said. Chief Emeka offered assistance in exchange for allowing the girl to receive treatment in Lagos. That is all she meant. What treatment is Oluchi receiving? Counseling. While locked in a study, the lock protects her when she becomes distressed. Chigozie watched her carefully. "Open the door." "Not now." Nkiruka. Her eyes filled with sudden tears. "Do you trust me so little?" The question was meant to move him, and once it would have. He reached across the table and covered her hand, playing the role she expected. "I trust you. I was simply surprised." Relief passed across her face. "Give me until this evening," she said. "I will prepare Oluchi to meet you." Chigozie nodded. After breakfast, Nkiruka announced that she had wedding appointments and left the mansion. Chigozie watched her vehicle disappear beyond the gate, then called Uche. I need you to investigate Dr. Balogun Chinelo's relatives and every recent visit Chief Emeka has made to this house. Is something wrong? I do not know yet. Do it quietly. He next called the security office and asked to review the household camera recordings. Chima brought him to the surveillance room, where several monitors displayed the gate, driveway, garden, and entrances. Show me footage from the last month. Chima became uneasy. Some files were deleted, sir. By whom? Madame Nkiruka requested it. She said the system was storing unnecessary footage. Chigozie searched what remained. Most recordings from the previous 2 weeks were missing, but an older backup showed Chief Emeka's black vehicle arriving 11 nights earlier. 2 men stepped out first. Then Nkiruka emerged from the mansion. One of the men opened the rear door and led Oluchi toward the house. She carried a faded school bag and looked confused rather than violent. No family member accompanied her. No medical professional arrived. Play the next hour. The video showed Chief Emeka leaving with the school bag. Oluchi remained behind. Chigozie copied the footage to an encrypted drive. He then checked household records. Nkiruka had ordered unusually large quantities of children's food, bottled water, and disinfectant 12 days earlier. A receipt from a pharmacy listed mild sleeping tablets, though no one in the mansion had reported needing them. When Ifunanya entered the study after lunch to clean Chigozie quietly, showed her the evidence. She has been here longer than she told you, he said. At least 11 days. Ifunanya examined the image of Oluchi entering the mansion. That is the dress she is still wearing. Chigozie stared at the screen, sickened by the detail he had missed. Nkiruka had claimed the girl arrived because of an urgent family crisis. Yet, the recordings showed careful planning. Food had been purchased beforehand. Footage had been erased afterward. This was not a favor that became complicated. It was concealment. A vehicle entered the driveway. Ifunanya looked through the window and turned pale. Chief Emeka stepped out with 2 unfamiliar men. He was not supposed to come today, she whispered. Chigozie closed the laptop. From upstairs came the sound of a key turning in the study door. Chief Emeka had arrived to move Oluchi. Chigozie and Ifunanya hurried into the corridor. At the top of the staircase, one of Chief Emeka's men was unlocking the study with a key. The second man waited behind him with a small suitcase. Neither wore a uniform, and neither had asked permission to enter. "What are you doing in my house?" Chigozie demanded. Both men froze. Chief Emeka appeared at the bottom of the stairs. He was a broad-shouldered man in his late 50s, dressed in a dark blue agbada embroidered with silver thread. His surprise vanished beneath a welcoming smile. "Chigozie Nkiruka said you were still in London. I returned last night." Chief Emeka climbed the stairs slowly. "Then we should celebrate." "The negotiations went well. I hope." Chigozie did not answer. His gaze remained on the key in the man's hand. "Why are your employees opening my study?" Chief Emeka gave a weary sigh, as if dealing with an embarrassing family problem. "Nkiruka told you about Oluchi. She told me several different stories. The child's family is complicated. Her mother cannot care for her, so I arranged a temporary placement. We came to take her to a private treatment center. Which center, those details are confidential. Not while she is being removed from my property." The 2 men exchanged nervous glances. Chief Emeka's smile became thinner. "This is a family matter, Chigozie. Then her family can speak to me directly. You do not understand the customs of rural communities. Some matters require discretion." Chigozie stepped between the men and the study door. "Oluchi is not leaving until I understand why she was brought here." Silence filled the hallway. Chief Emeka glanced at Ifunanya. His eyes lingered on her with cold recognition. "The maid has been filling your head with nonsense. The maid did not invite strangers into my home. Chief Emeka lowered his voice. Be careful. Marriage joins families, but suspicion can destroy them before vows are exchanged. If the truth can destroy my marriage, the truth is not the problem. For the first time, anger showed on the older man's face. Still, he knew he could not force the issue inside Chigozie's mansion. He signaled to his men. We will return when Nkiruka is present. No, Chigozie said. You will return only when I invite you. Chief Emeka walked downstairs without replying. Before leaving, he stopped beside Ifunanya. Loyal workers know the limits of their responsibilities. Ifunanya felt the warning, but she did not look away. After the vehicle departed, Chigozie ordered the security team to change every external access code. No visitor was to enter without his approval. He then instructed Chima to remain near the study. Ifunanya brought Oluchi clean clothes, food, and fresh bedding. Chigozie wanted the door left open, but the child refused to come into the hallway. She had begun to believe every unexpected movement meant she was being taken somewhere else. Let her decide when to step out, Ifunanya advised. She needs to feel that one choice still belongs to her. Chigozie agreed. While Ifunanya sat with Oluchi, he contacted a lawyer named Nnamdi Okeke, who had handled the company's most sensitive disputes for years. Chigozie described the situation without exaggeration. Do not contact the police yet, Nnamdi warned, not because the case is unimportant, but because we have too little information. If Chief Emeka has documents claiming family consent, he may accuse you of interfering with a lawful guardianship arrangement. There is nothing lawful about locking a child in a room. I agree, but we need her mother, the agreement, and proof of deception. Find them. Nnamdi began searching official records connected to Oluchi's surname and Umudaike. Uche investigated Dr. Balogun and discovered that 3 doctors in Lagos shared the name, but none had scheduled an appointment at Chigozie's address. Chinelo also denied asking Nkiruka to house any child. The lie was unraveling, yet its purpose remained hidden. That afternoon, Nkiruka returned furious. You humiliated my uncle. He arrived with men and tried to remove Oluchi, because she has an appointment, where Nkiruka placed her handbag on the table. I do not have to defend every decision to you. You do when the decision concerns a child hidden in my house. Her eyes shifted toward Ifunanya, who stood near the kitchen doorway. This began after she spoke to you. This began before I returned. Nkiruka approached Ifunanya. Leave us. Ifunanya obeyed, but before she reached the stairs, Nkiruka spoke again. And pack your belongings. Your services are no longer required. Chigozie's voice became firm. She remains employed. You would choose a maid over the woman you intend to marry. I am choosing not to punish someone before knowing the truth. Nkiruka stared at him. Hurt rose within her, but beneath it lived fear. She had spent years under Chief Emeka's control, following instructions she told herself were temporary. Chigozie's return threatened the life she had carefully built. Chief Emeka helped Oluchi's family, she said. He paid debts and arranged care for her mother. The girl was sent here legally. Show me the agreement. My uncle has it. Then ask him to provide it. Nkiruka turned away. You will regret treating my family like criminals. When she left the room, Chigozie noticed her hand shaking. That evening, he arranged for a licensed child welfare counselor, Adesuwa Bello, to visit Oluchi discreetly. Adesuwa confirmed that the girl showed signs of severe anxiety and believed she had been separated from her mother through deception. We must locate Urena quickly, she said. Oluchi needs familiar family support, not more strangers questioning her. Nnamdi called shortly afterwards. He had found no legal guardianship record bearing Oluchi's name. He had, however, discovered a small foundation linked to Chief Emeka. It claimed to provide medical assistance to widowed mothers in rural communities. Several families had received initial payments before losing contact with the foundation. What did the foundation gain? Chigozie asked. That is what I am trying to understand. Elsewhere in Lagos, Ifunanya was traveling to the hospital after receiving an urgent message from Obinna. When she arrived, she found him sitting outside the cardiology ward with his belongings packed in a plastic bag. What happened? The hospital cancelled my tests, he said. They said the sponsor withdrew payment. Ifunanya rushed to the accounts office. The clerk explained that a woman claiming to represent the Okafor family had called that afternoon. She stated that no further bills would be covered and warned that previous payments might have been obtained fraudulently. Who called? Ifunanya asked. She did not give her name. Did you record the number? The clerk checked the file and wrote it down. Ifunanya recognized the final digits. It belonged to Nkiruka. Her phone rang before she could call Chigozie. The number was hidden. Ifunanya Chifamika said, when she answered, your brother is standing outside a hospital because you forgot your place. Her breath stopped. You will persuade Chigozie to let Oluchi leave tomorrow, he continued. If you refuse, every hospital in Lagos will hear that your family obtained money through fraud. Why are you doing this? Because poor people survive by cooperating. The call ended. Obinna approached, holding his bag against his chest. What did he mean? He asked quietly. Ifunanya could no longer pretend that her burden affected only her. As she struggled to answer, a message appeared on her screen. It contained a photograph of Obinna leaving the hospital, taken only moments earlier. Someone was watching them. Ifunanya looked around the hospital courtyard, searching every parked car and shadowed doorway. People moved past them without concern. A woman sold roasted groundnuts near the gate. 2 nurses waited for a bus. A man leaned against a silver car while speaking on his phone, but he turned away before Ifunanya could see his face. Who is watching us? Obinna asked. She showed him the photograph and told him everything. The hidden child and Kiruka's threats, Chifamika's call, and the payment withdrawn from the hospital. Obinna listened without interrupting. When she finished, shame lowered her voice. I thought I could protect you without frightening you. You cannot protect me by facing dangerous people alone. If anything happened to you, and what happens to that girl if we remain silent? Ifunanya stared at him. Obinna picked up his bag. You taught me that our poverty does not make us less human. We cannot forget ye that because someone rich has threatened us. His courage filled her with pride and fear in equal measure. She called Chigozie. Within 40 minutes, Uche arrived with a company vehicle. Chigozie had arranged for Obinna to be admitted to another hospital under his personal account. A security officer would remain nearby, and the new facility would not release information to outsiders. As the vehicle carried them away, Ifunanya noticed the silver car following for several streets before turning in another direction. At the new hospital, Chigozie met them near a private admissions desk. I should have protected your brother the moment you told me about the threat, he said. You did not cause this, sir, but it happened because of something inside my home. Obinna extended his hand. Thank you for helping me. Chigozie shook it. Your sister has risked more than anyone should have asked of her. After Obinna was settled, Ifunanya returned to the mansion with Chigozie. Nkiruka was absent and Chifamika's vehicle was nowhere nearby. Still, Chigozie increased security around the property and instructed Chima to photograph anyone who approached the gates. Oluchi remained in the study with Adesuwa. The door was open, but the child had moved a chair against it, leaving only a narrow space through which she could see the corridor. When Ifunanya appeared, Oluchi pushed the chair aside and ran toward her. You came back. Ifunanya knelt and held her gently. I told you I would. They said you were gone. Who said that? The tall man. He came when Madame Nkiruka was here. He said you chose your brother and forgot me. Ifunanya understood why Chief Emeka had cancelled Obina's treatment. He wanted her to believe that saving one vulnerable person required abandoning another. "I have not forgotten you," she said. "My brother is safe, and I am here." Oluchi touched the faint red mark on Ifunanya's arm where Nkiruka had grabbed her the previous day. "Did they punish you because of me?" "No. None of this is your fault." Chigozie watched from the corridor. The child relaxed around Ifunanya in a way she did not with anyone else. Trust had not come from wealth or promises. It had grown from cups of water, pieces of bread, and one woman returning when she said she would. Adesua suggested that Ifunanya help Oluchi speak about her home without pressuring her. They moved to a bright guest room overlooking the garden. The curtains remained open, and Oluchi chose to sit on the carpet near the balcony. Ifunanya placed paper and colored pencils before her. "Can you draw where you lived?" Oluchi began cautiously. She drew a small house with a rust-colored roof, a mango tree, and a woman sitting beside a table covered with baskets. "That is Mama," she said. "She makes the strongest baskets in our village. Was she sick before you came to Lagos?" Oluchi nodded. She coughed and became tired. Sometimes her legs were swollen. "How did you meet Nkiruka?" "Chief Emeka came to our church with people from his foundation. They gave food to some families. He said sick mothers could receive treatment in Lagos." Oluchi drew a black vehicle beside the house. Madam Nkiruka came later. She wore a red dress and brought medicine. She told Mama that rich families needed respectful girls to help in their homes for a short time. "Did your mother want you to go no?" She cried. Oluchi's pencil stopped moving. "Chief Emeka said I would attend a good school and come home when Mama became strong. He said if she refused, the foundation would help another family instead." Chigozie felt anger rise within him. The arrangement had not been freely accepted. It had been forced upon a sick woman through desperation. "Did your mother sign anything?" Adesua asked gently. "She cannot read English well." A man told her to press her thumb on a paper. He gave her an envelope. What was inside? Some money. Madam Nkiruka said more would be sent after we reached Lagos. Oluchi's eyes filled with tears. "Did you speak to your mother after leaving only once?" "At a petrol station, I heard Madam talking to her. Mama was crying and asking when the hospital money would come. Madame said she had already sent it. What happened next? Madame ended the call. I asked to speak to Mama, but she said children who ask too many questions are ungrateful." Ifunanya moved closer. "Take your time." Oluchi wiped her face. "When we reached Lagos, Chief Emeka took my school bag and asked me questions. He wanted to know if other girls in my village had sick mothers. Then he brought me here." "Did he tell you why?" Chigozie asked. Oluchi looked at him for reassurance before answering. "He said I would be trained before going to my new house." "What new house?" "A family outside Nigeria. He said they would pay for Mama's treatment if I obeyed." The room became silent. This was larger than an illegal guardianship. Chief Emeka appeared to be moving vulnerable children into private homes using medical promises to obtain family consent. Oluchi began crying. "I do not want another family. I have Mama." Ifunanya drew her into an embrace. "No one will take you away." Chigozie stepped onto the balcony and called Namdi. After hearing Oluchi's account, the lawyer promised to contact child protection authorities and trace the foundation's travel records. "Do not alert Chief Emeka," Namdi warned. "If other children are involved, he may destroy the evidence or move them." When Chigozie returned inside, Oluchi handed him the drawing. On the bottom corner she had drawn a small mobile phone beside Nkiruka's red dress. "What is this?" he asked. "Madame gave Mama that phone so she could call about the money." "Do you remember any number?" Oluchi thought carefully, then recited 5 digits. They were not enough to identify the phone, but they were a beginning. That evening, Uche called with new information. He had traced a payment from Chief Emeka's foundation to a pharmacy near Umudaike. The amount was small and made before Oluchi left. No hospital payments had followed. Nkiruka had lied to Urena. Chief Emeka had lied to the entire family. Chigozie looked toward Oluchi, asleep beside Ifunanya for the first time with the door open. "We need to find her mother," he said. Ifunanya nodded, before they realize how much Oluchi remembers. At that moment, Nkiruka stood outside the guest room hidden from view. She had heard everything, and she was already dialing Chief Emeka's number. Nkiruka stepped away from the guest room before Chief Emeka answered. She entered the upstairs bathroom, locked the door, and lowered her voice. Oluchi told them about the village. For several seconds, her uncle said nothing. How much? She mentioned the foundation, the documents, and the family outside Nigeria. Chief Emeka's response was frighteningly calm. Then the child must leave tonight. Chigozie has guards everywhere. You created this problem by allowing him to return without warning. I did not control his flight. You controlled the house. That should have been enough. Nkiruka stared at herself in the mirror. Beneath the expensive makeup and elegant clothes, she saw the frightened young woman who had depended on Chief Emeka after her father's death. He had managed her inheritance, introduced her to influential people, and repeatedly reminded her that everything she possessed existed because of him. "What do you want me to do?" she asked. "Separate Chigozie from the maid. I will handle the rest." The call ended. Nkiruka remained inside the bathroom, troubled by the meaning of those words. She had agreed to hide Oluchi for only 2 nights while documents were prepared. 2 nights had become nearly 2 weeks. Each time she questioned her uncle, he reminded her of the money she had accepted from the foundation. She told herself she was protecting her future. Downstairs, Chigozie was already planning to leave for Umudaike. He informed Nkiruka that a transportation crisis required him to visit an eastern warehouse. He hated lying, but Oluchi's safety depended on preventing Chief Emeka from reaching Urena first. Before dawn, Chigozie, Ifunanya, Uche, and Namdi departed Lagos in 2 vehicles. Adesua remained with Oluchi at the mansion, protected by trusted security officers. Nkiruka was told that the child welfare counselor had authority to prevent anyone from removing the girl. The journey east took several hours. As Lagos disappeared behind them, crowded highways gave way to smaller roads lined with farms, roadside workshops, and villages. Ifunanya sat beside Chigozie, holding Oluchi's drawing. "Do you think her mother is still there?" she asked. "She must be," Chigozie replied, though he could not promise it. They reached Umudaike in the afternoon. Red earth covered the narrow road, and the air smelled of wood smoke and approaching rain. Oluchi's drawing guided them toward a small house with a rust-colored roof and a mango tree leaning over the yard. The table where Urena once displayed her baskets was empty. An elderly neighbor named Mama Ebele emerged from the next compound. Her suspicion softened when Ifunanya showed her Oluchi's drawing. "You know the child. She is safe," Ifunanya said. "We came to find her mother." Mama Ebele covered her mouth. Urena believed her daughter had abandoned her. That is what the foundation told her. She would never abandon her mother. "I know. But illness and grief can make lies sound true." Mama Ebele led them inside the house. Urena lay on a thin mattress near an open window. She was only 36, but sickness had hollowed her cheeks and weakened her body. Unfinished baskets rested in a corner beside medicine packets from the village pharmacy. When she heard Oluchi's name, she struggled to sit up. "Where is my daughter?" Ifunanya knelt beside her. "She is in Lagos. She is alive." Urena seized her hands. "Did you see her?" "Yes. Is she hurt?" "She is frightened, but she is safe now. Tears rolled down Urena's face. They told me she had been placed with a good family. They said she no longer wanted to return because she had food, new clothes, and a school. Chigozie felt sickened. Oluchi had worn the same oversized yellow dress for nearly 2 weeks. "Who told you that?" Namdi asked. "A man from Chief Emika's office. When I kept calling, the number stopped working." Urena pointed toward a cracked mobile phone on the floor. Its call history showed repeated unanswered attempts to contact Nkiruka. "What money did you receive?" Chigozie asked gently. Urena explained that the foundation had given her 50,000 naira before taking Oluchi. Chief Emika promised to pay for hospital treatment once the girl reached Lagos. Instead, no doctor contacted her. The small payment disappeared into transportation, medicine, and existing debts. "Did you sign an agreement?" "I pressed my thumb on papers. They would not let Mama Ebele read them." Namdi asked whether she had copies. Urena shook her head, but Mama Ebele remembered the vehicle left. Chief Emika had taken that bag at the mansion. Chigozie showed Urena a recent photograph Adesua had taken of Oluchi, smiling faintly in the garden. Urena pressed the phone to her chest and wept. "My child thought I sold her." "No," Ifunanya said. "She knows you love her. She has spoken about you every day." Urena's relief quickly became fear. Chief Emika warned that if I caused trouble, I would owe him the cost of everything. "I borrowed money after he stopped helping. The lenders want my house." Outside, more villagers had gathered. A church elder named Okechukwu recognized the foundation's name. Chief Emika's representatives had visited 3 surrounding communities during the previous year. They targeted widows and sick single mothers, offering medical support or education in exchange for sending older children to work with wealthy families. "At least 7 children left," Okechukwu said. "Some call home, but others disappeared." "Do you have their names?" Namdi asked. The elder brought them to the church office. Inside a worn ledger were records of food donations, family visits, and departures, witnessed by church volunteers. 7 children had been listed. 3 were believed to be in Lagos. 2 had supposedly traveled to Côte d'Ivoire. 1 was sent to a family in the United Kingdom. The final child's destination was unknown. Next to every name appeared the initials E.O. Emika Obasi. The ledger was not enough to prove trafficking or illegal placement, but it established a pattern. Each family had received a small initial payment. Each had later been told that further assistance depended on silence. Ucha photographed every page. Namdi contacted the families and recorded their accounts. One mother said her 15-year-old son called only once from Abidjan, crying and asking to come home. Another had received messages claiming to be from her daughter, though the language did not sound like the girl's writing. By sunset, the village church was filled with parents carrying photographs, letters, and broken promises. Chigozie had come looking for one mother. He found an entire community waiting for children who might never return. Before leaving, he arranged for Urena to be transported to a hospital in Auca under independent protection. She refused to go until Chigozie promised that Oluchi would be brought to her as soon as authorities approved the reunion. On the road back, Namdi received a call from Lagos. Chief Emeka's foundation office had caught fire. The damage was limited, but several cabinets containing family placement records had been destroyed before firefighters arrived. "This was deliberate," Namdi said. Chigozie looked at the photographed ledger on Ucha's tablet. "They know we are investigating." At the mansion, Nkiruka stood in the empty study holding Oluchi's faded school bag. Chief Emeka had ordered her to destroy it. She opened the bag and found a folded document beneath the torn lining. 7 children's names were written across the page. At the bottom was Nkiruka's own signature. Nkiruka stared at her signature until the letters blurred. She remembered the evening Chief Emeka brought the document to her apartment nearly a year earlier. He said it authorized temporary domestic placements for children whose families needed financial assistance. He pointed to the marked line and told her the lawyers had already reviewed everything. She had signed without reading the names. Later, when questions troubled her, he transferred a large payment into an account he managed for her. She accepted it. That decision had bound her to every lie that followed. Now Oluchi's school bag held proof, and Kiruka folded the document and placed it inside her handbag. She could have given it to Chigozie. Instead, she called her uncle. "I found a list with my signature. Destroy it." "What happened at the foundation office?" "A minor electrical fire." "You burned the records." Chief Amika's silence answered her. "Some of those children are missing," she whispered. "They are working with respectable families." "Then why destroy the files?" His voice hardened. "Because your future husband is interfering in matters he does not understand. If he sees that document, he will abandon you and hand you to the authorities." Nkiruka closed her eyes. "What should I do?" "Remove the maid. Chigozie trusts her, and Oluchi listens to her. Once she is gone, we can move the child." He ordered security not to let Oluchi leave, then create a reason for him to doubt his loyal servant. That evening, Chigozie's group reached Lagos. Before returning to the mansion, Namdi insisted that they stop at his office to secure copies of the village records. Uche accompanied them, while Ifunanya asked to be dropped at the house so she could check on Oluchi. Chima welcomed her at the gate. "Madam Nkiruka has been asking when you would return." Ifunanya felt an immediate uneasiness. Inside, Adesua was preparing dinner with Oluchi in the guest room. The girl rushed into Ifunanya's arms. "Did you see Mama?" "I did." Oluchi searched her face. "Is she angry with me?" "No, she loves you, and she has never stopped waiting for you." Ifunanya showed her a short video recorded in the village. Urena appeared weak but smiling. "My precious child," she said in the video, "nothing they told you can change that you are mine. Be brave a little longer. I am coming for you." Oluchi pressed the phone against her chest and cried with relief. From the doorway, Nkiruka watched them. For a moment, guilt softened her face. Then she remembered Chief Amika's warning that Chigozie would leave her, the police would investigate her, and the comfortable life she had built would collapse. "Ifunanya," she said, "come downstairs." In the main sitting room, 2 security officers waited beside a policewoman. A red jewelry box lays open on the table. "My grandmother's necklace is missing," Nkiruka announced. Ifunanya looked from the box to the officers. "I have not seen it." Nkiruka turned to the policewoman. "Search her room." Chima stepped forward. "Madam, Mr. Okafor instructed us not to take action against any staff member without contacting him. This does not concern household discipline. A diamond necklace has been stolen. Then we should call him. He is handling a legal emergency and cannot be disturbed." Ifunanya recognized the trap. "Call him now," she told Chima. Nkiruka lifted her chin. "A thief does not give orders in my home." "It is not your home," Ifunanya replied quietly. "And I did not take your necklace." The policewoman accompanied them to the staff room. Inside the small wardrobe beneath a folded uniform, she found a velvet pouch. Nkiruka's necklace was inside. Ifunanya's stomach dropped. "I have never touched that." "Of course," Nkiruka said. "It must have walked into your wardrobe." Chima looked unconvinced. He dialed Chigozie, but the call failed. Chief Emeka had arranged for a technician to disrupt the mansion's internet and mobile signal booster minutes earlier. Nkiruka faced the policewoman. "I do not want scandal before my wedding. I will not press charges if she leaves immediately and never returns." The offer itself revealed the accusation was false. Ifunanya understood that Nkiruka did not want an investigation. She wanted her separated from Oluchi before Chigozie arrived. I am staying until I speak to Mr. Okafor. Nkiruka's expression turned cold. Remove her. Chima refused. I answer to Mr. Okafor. The second security officer, Bamidele, had been hired through a company connected to Chief Emeka. He grabbed Ifunanya's bag and carried it toward the door. Adesua came downstairs with Oluchi behind her. What is happening? The counselor demanded. The maid stole from me, Nkiruka said. That is a lie, Oluchi cried. She ran toward Ifunanya, but Nkiruka caught her shoulders. Ifunanya tried to reach the girl. Bamidele blocked her path. Do not frighten her, Ifunanya pleaded. Nkiruka leaned close enough that only she could hear. Leave now, or your brother's photograph will be the least painful thing you receive. Ifunanya saw fear behind Nkiruka's cruelty. Yet fear did not excuse the choices she was making. If Oluchi disappears, Ifunanya whispered, you will never be able to pretend you did not know. For a moment, Nkiruka loosened her grip on the child. Then, Bamidele pushed Ifunanya through the front entrance and dropped her bag onto the driveway. Chima followed protesting, but the gates closed between them before he could stop it. Ifunanya stood outside beneath the gathering rain. Her phone still showed no signal. She began walking toward the main road, hoping to reach a place where she could call Chigozie. Inside, Oluchi screamed for her. Adesua demanded access to a working telephone, but Bamidele locked her and Oluchi inside the guest room. Chima attempted to open the gate and discovered that his access code had been disabled. A black vehicle stopped outside the service entrance. The same two men who had accompanied Chief Emeka earlier stepped out. This time, they carried official-looking documents and a bottle of children's medicine. Bamidele allowed them inside. Nkiruka stared at the folded document in her handbag. My uncle said the girl would remain in Lagos. Plans changed, one man replied. She is being taken to Cotonou tonight. Nkiruka stepped backward. No. Chigozie will return soon. Then we must move quickly. Upstairs, Adesua pushed a chair beneath the locked door handle while Oluchi cried beside her. On the roadside, Ifunanya finally found a weak signal. She called Chigozie, but the line disconnected before he could answer. She sent one short message. They framed me. Chief Emeka's men are taking Oluchi. At Namdi's office, Chigozie's phone lit up. He read the message once, then ran for the door. Meanwhile, one of the men unlocked the guest room from outside. Move away from the door, he ordered. Adesua held the chair in place. Behind her, Oluchi climbed through the open balcony window and stepped onto the narrow ledge. She was not trying to escape the mansion. She was trying to hide from the men coming to take her away. Rain began tapping against the balcony railing as Oluchi pressed herself against the wall. The ledge was narrow, only a few steps above the lower roof, but one frightened movement could send her falling onto the stone terrace below. Adesua stopped pushing the chair against the door. Oluchi, look at me. The child shook her head. You are not in trouble. I need you to take my hand. The men struck the door from outside. Open it now. Oluchi flinched and one foot slipped. Adesua's heart nearly stopped. She reached through the window without making any sudden movement. Listen to your mother's voice in your heart, she said softly. She is waiting for you. Ifunanya is coming back. But first you must come inside. The door shook again. Oluchi looked at Adesua's open hand. You promise they will not take me. I will stand between you and them. Slowly, Oluchi reached forward. Adesua caught her wrist and guided her through the window. The moment the child was inside, she closed the glass doors and pulled the curtains. Downstairs, Nkiruka heard the men threatening to break into the guest room. This was not the agreement, she said. One of them turned toward her. Chief Emeka gave us instructions. This is Chigozie's home. You should have remembered that before hiding the girl here. The words struck with painful accuracy. Outside the gates, Ifunanya ran through the rain toward the main road. Her broken shoe slowed her, and her uniform clung to her body. She tried calling Chigozie again, but the weak signal dropped. At a roadside market, traders were covering their goods with plastic sheets. Mama Ngozi, an elderly woman who had known Ifunanya since her first year in Lagos, saw her stumble beneath an awning. "My child, what happened? I need a phone." Mama Ngozi handed over hers without questioning. Ifunanya called the police and reported that men were attempting to remove a child from a private home. The officer asked whether she was the child's relative. "No." "Are you inside the property?" "No. They forced me out." "Then, how do you know what is happening?" "I saw the men enter. A counselor and a child are locked inside." The officer promised to send a patrol, but his doubtful tone frightened her. Chief Emeka's men could leave long before anyone arrived. Other traders gathered as Ifunanya explained. One young mechanic offered to drive her back on his motorcycle. Mama Ngozi caught Ifunanya's arm. "You cannot enter that place alone. If they take Oluchi across the border, her mother may never see her again. And if those men harm you..." Ifunanya looked toward the distant mansion. "Then, at least someone must know where I went." Mama Ngozi had watched the young woman work through illness, hunger, and grief without asking anyone to carry her burden. She understood that Ifunanya could not be persuaded to abandon a child. "Then you will not go alone," she said. The mechanic drove, while Mama Ngozi and several traders followed in a delivery van. They had no wealth or influence, but they understood what powerful people often forgot witnesses could make quiet wrongdoing difficult. At the mansion, Bamidele opened the service gate. Chief Emeka's men brought the black vehicle closer to the house. Chima blocked the driveway. Mr. Okafor ordered that the child remain here. One man displayed a stamped document. "We have authorization from her legal guardian." "Who is the guardian chief, Emeka Obasi?" Chima examined the paper. The signature resembled Urena's thumbprint, but there was no government seal or child welfare approval. "This document does not override my employer's instructions." Bamidele shoved him aside. Nkiruka stood near the staircase, holding her handbag. She could hear Oluchi crying behind the upstairs door. The sound awakened a memory she had tried to bury herself at 19, begging Chief Emeka to explain why her father's property had been transferred into companies she did not control. He had told her to be grateful. For years she had mistaken obedience for security. Now she was imposing the same prison on a child. "Stop," Nkiruka said. The men ignored her and climbed the stairs. "I said, stop." One looked back. "Do you want your uncle to hear that you interfered?" Fear closed around her again. Her hand tightened over the document inside her bag, but she did not move. Outside, Ifunanya arrived with the traders. The service gate was still open, and she saw the black vehicle waiting near the kitchen entrance. She stepped off the motorcycle and walked toward it. Mama Ngozi followed. "What are you planning?" "If they bring Oluchi downstairs, I will stand in front of the car." "They may not stop." "They will if enough people are watching." The traders raised their phones and began recording from outside the gate. Bamidele rushed toward them. "Leave this property." "We are standing on the road," Mama Ngozi answered, "and the road does not belong to your rich friends." The shouting reached the upstairs corridor. Chief Emeka's men broke the guest room lock and pushed the chair aside. Adesua stood before Oluchi. "You cannot take her without a registered child welfare officer," she said. One man seized her arm and moved her away. The other reached for Oluchi. The child screamed. At that moment, headlights swept across the driveway. Chigozie's vehicle entered through the main gate before Bamidele could close it. Nnamdi and two licensed security officers followed in a second car. Chigozie stepped out before the vehicle fully stopped. "Take your hands off that child." The men released Oluchi and hurried downstairs. Seeing cameras pointed toward the gate and Chigozie blocking their vehicle, they abandoned the attempt to remove her. One man called Chief Emeka. "The situation is exposed," he whispered. "We have to leave." Nnamdi instructed Chima to secure the gate, but Bamidele opened it remotely. The black vehicle accelerated toward the exit. Ifunanya moved into its path. Chigozie saw her and ran across the driveway. "Ifunanya, move." She remained still until the vehicle was only a few meters away. Chigozie pulled her aside as it swerved through the gate and disappeared into the rain. For several seconds neither spoke. "You could have been killed," he said, shaken. If they had Oluchi inside, they did not. Oluchi appeared at the front entrance with Adesuwa. When she saw Ifunanya, she ran barefoot through the rain and wrapped both arms around her waist. "You came back." "So did you," Ifunanya whispered. Police arrived minutes later. The traders gave recordings and witness statements. Adesuwa reported the forced entry, while Chima admitted that Bamidele had disabled the security system. Bamidele had already fled. Nkiruka stood alone in the sitting room as officers searched the house. The evidence inside her handbag seemed to grow heavier with every passing minute. Chigozie entered. "Did you plant the necklace?" Nkiruka looked at the floor. "Answer me." "Yes." The confession broke something between them, but Chigozie did not yet understand how much remained hidden. Nkiruka touched the document through the leather of her bag. She almost handed it to him. Then her phone vibrated with a message from Chief Emeka. "If I fall, you fall with me." Nkiruka closed the handbag. "I did it because I was afraid of losing you," she said. Chigozie's eyes filled with disappointment. "You were willing to destroy an innocent woman to protect a lie." Outside, Ifunanya prepared to accompany the police and give a full statement, regardless of what Chief Emeka did to her reputation. For the first time, she was no longer standing alone. Yet the man they needed to stop had vanished, and he now knew every piece of evidence they possessed. By midnight, the mansion no longer felt like a home. Police officers moved through the hallways, photographing the damaged guest room, lock, and collecting statements. Oluchi remained beside Adesuwa in a secured bedroom, while Ifunanya sat nearby until the child finally slept. Nkiruka had been questioned, but not arrested. The police said the planted necklace and attempted removal required further investigation, especially because Chief Emeka's men had presented documents claiming legal authority. Chigozie stood alone in his study. That room had once contained his mother's books, family photographs, and private letters. Now he saw only the blanket on the sofa and the closed curtains behind which Oluchi had waited for someone to hear her. Ifunanya appeared at the doorway. "Oluchi is asleep, sir." "Come in." She hesitated before entering. Chigozie looked at the faded uniform she still wore. Rain had dried unevenly across the fabric, and her broken shoe rested beside the door. "I owe you an apology. You helped my brother and protected Oluchi. After I ignored signs that were inside my own house. You were deceived. I allowed comfort to become trust." His voice grew heavy. "When you warned me, part of me wondered whether you had misunderstood something. Nkiruka was my fiancée, and you were an employee. I gave her explanation more weight before hearing yours. Ifunanya appreciated his honesty because he did not hide behind good intentions." "You listened before it was too late," she said. "Only because you kept speaking." He promised that the false theft accusation would be formally withdrawn and erased from every household and security record. He also offered to replace her belongings and increase her salary. Ifunanya shook her head. "I do not want payment for helping Oluchi. It is not payment. It is responsibility. Then let the responsibility begin with finding the other children." Chigozie nodded. The next morning, Namdi gathered everyone in a private conference room at Okafor Meridian's headquarters. Uche had secured the church ledger, the surveillance, recording Urena's testimony, and videos from the traders outside the mansion. The evidence showed coercion and attempted concealment, but it did not reveal where the missing children had gone. Chief Emeka had not returned home, and his known office accounts were being emptied through unfamiliar companies. If he leaves Nigeria, locating the children becomes harder, Namdi said. Can the police stop him? Chigozie asked. Not without stronger evidence connecting him directly to illegal transfers. His lawyers claim the foundation arranged lawful work and educational placements with family consent. Consent obtained from sick mothers who could not read the documents. We know that. A court will still ask to see those documents. Ifunanya remembered Oluchi's school bag. Chief Emeka took it when he brought her to the mansion. Nkiruka, seated at the far end of the room, lowered her gaze. Chigozie noticed. Do you know where the bag is? No. The lie came too quickly. Nnamdi placed several photographs on the table. They showed Nkiruka attending foundation events with Chief Emeka and meeting families in rural communities. You were involved, Chigozie said. I attended charity visits. That does not mean I knew everything. You knew enough to hide Oluchi. Nkiruka's eyes filled with tears. I made terrible decisions because my uncle said the arrangements were legal. Then help us prove otherwise. I have told you everything. Ifunanya saw Nkiruka's hand tighten around her handbag. She sensed that fear, not ignorance, was keeping her silent. After the meeting, Chigozie and Ifunanya began tracing every clue Oluchi remembered. They visited the pharmacy that supplied Urena's medicine and obtained a copy of Chief Emeka's payment receipt. Uche searched company registries and found 3 agencies connected to the foundation through shared directors. One agency recruited domestic workers, another arranged foreign travel. The third provided private family services to wealthy clients. A former accountant named Chibuzo had resigned from the foundation 6 months earlier. When Namdi contacted him, he initially refused to speak. Ifunanya traveled to his neighborhood and waited outside his small printing shop. You know, families are searching for their children, she told him. Chibuzo kept his eyes on the machine. I have children too. That is why I cannot help you. That is also why you should. He finally admitted that Chief Emeka created false debt agreements. Families believed they were receiving medical grants, but the documents described the money as loans secured by years of their children's labor. Where are the records? Ifunanya asked. Some were in the office that burned. The complete files were stored digitally, but only Chief Emeka and his finance director had access. Can you identify the accounts? Chibuzo wrote 3 company names on a piece of paper. Uche traced payments from those companies to travel agents, private households, and a luxury hotel owned by one of Chief Emeka's associates. More importantly, Chibuzo remembered that the foundation used a cloud backup updated every month. If we obtain that backup, Namdi said later, we may find contracts, passport copies, destinations, and payments. Chief Emeka would never surrender it willingly. They needed him to believe the investigation was collapsing. Chigozie made a painful decision. Publicly, he would continue the engagement. He instructed his communications team to deny rumors of conflict and released a brief statement saying that a household misunderstanding had been exaggerated. Ifunanya disliked allowing Nkiruka to appear innocent, but she understood the strategy. If Chief Emeka believes you still intend to marry her, he may contact her, she said, and lead us to the records. Nkiruka was not told the full plan. Chigozie simply informed her that he did not want scandal to destroy their families before the truth was established. She mistook restraint for forgiveness. 2 days later, Nkiruka announced that their engagement celebration would proceed at the Grand Atlantic Hotel. Hundreds of business leaders, relatives, journalists, and foundation donors would attend. Chief Emeka sent her a message almost immediately. You have finally made a sensible decision. I will come if Chigozie publicly clears my name. Nkiruka showed the message to no one. Meanwhile, Namdi secured cooperation from financial crimes investigators and child protection officers. If Chief Emeka appeared at the celebration and accessed the foundation's accounts, they could trace the digital backup. Chigozie asked Ifunanya to attend as a protected witness. I am a maid, she said. People like Chief Emeka will not speak freely if they see me. That is precisely why they have underestimated you. The night before the celebration, Ifunanya visited Obina. His tests were complete, and the new doctors believed his procedure could be scheduled soon. You look worried, he said. Tomorrow may decide whether those families find their children. Then remember something, Obina replied. Powerful people expect fear to keep everyone in their assigned place. You frighten them the moment you refuse to remain there. At the mansion, Nkiruka opened her handbag and unfolded the document bearing 7 children's names. She had been invited to Chief Emeka's hotel suite before the celebration. He wanted her to bring every remaining piece of evidence. For the first time, she understood that the event was not merely a celebration. It was where one side intended to silence the truth and the other intended to expose it. Ket Thuk Fan 11. Fan 12. The Grand Atlantic Hotel glittered above the Lagos waterfront. By early evening, the ballroom had been transformed with white flowers, crystal lights, and tables covered in gold-trimmed linen. Photographers waited near the entrance, while musicians rehearsed on a raised stage. To the arriving guests, the celebration looked like proof that Chigozie and Nkiruka's future remained untouched by rumor. Behind the beauty investigators watched every exit. Namdi remained in a private security room with 2 financial crimes officers. Uche monitored the hotel's internal cameras. Child protection officials waited nearby with copies of the village testimonies, while Chigozie moved among the guests as though nothing had changed. Ifunanya entered through the staff corridor wearing a simple navy dress borrowed from Mama Ngozie's daughter. She felt exposed without her uniform. As a maid, wealthy guests rarely looked at her. As a witness, she had to stand where they could see her. Adesua remained at the mansion with Oluchi under police protection. Before Ifunanya left, the child had given her a small bracelet made from blue thread. For courage, Oluchi said. Now Ifunanya wore it beneath her sleeve. Nkiruka arrived last. She wore an ivory dress and smiled for the cameras, but fear tightened her chest. The document with the 7 names rested inside a flat envelope beneath her shawl. She had not destroyed it. She had also not given it to Chigozie. Chief Emeka had reserved a private suite on the hotel's upper floor. His message instructed her to meet him before the formal speeches. When Chigozie greeted her at the ballroom entrance, he touched her hand without affection. You look beautiful, he said for the cameras. Do you mean that you know what tonight is about? Nkiruka searched his expression. Our engagement. The truth. Her smile nearly disappeared, but guests were watching. She leaned closer as though sharing an intimate word. If you humiliate my family publicly, there will be no way back, Chigozie answered quietly. There was no way back after you framed Ifunanya. Nkiruka moved away before her tears became visible. At 8 o'clock, Chief Emeka entered through a restricted garage. He avoided the ballroom and went directly to his suite with a lawyer and the foundation's finance director. Uche saw him on camera. He is here, he told Namdi. The investigators could monitor movement, but not private conversations. They needed Chief Emeka to access the digital backup or reveal where it was stored. Nkiruka left the ballroom and entered the elevator alone. Ifunanya saw her departure and alerted Chigozie. Let her go, he said. If we follow too closely, Emeka may leave. On the 14th floor, Nkiruka knocked on the suite door. Chief Emeka opened it himself. You are late. I had to greet the guests. Do you have the document? She held her shawl closed. First, tell me what happened to the children. He poured himself a drink. Not this again. Oluchi said she was being sent outside Nigeria. Some mothers have not heard from their children in months. They signed agreements. They could not read those agreements. That is not my responsibility. Nkiruka stared at him. You promised education and medical care. I promised opportunity. Do you think opportunity arrives without sacrifice? They are children. They are poor children. Their families accepted money because hunger speaks louder than sentiment. His cruelty shocked her, though she had helped him hide it. Give me the document, he ordered. No. Chief Emeka set down his glass. When your father died, who paid your school fees? You used money from my inheritance. Who introduced you to Chigozie? You arranged for us to attend the same charity dinner. And who protected you when your careless signatures began appearing on foundation contracts and Kiruka's face drained of color? Chief Emeka opened a laptop and displayed scanned documents. Her signature appeared on travel approvals, loan agreements, and placement lists she had never seen. I did not sign all of these. You signed enough. A court will not care which page you remember. You forged them. Prove it. The truth settled over her with devastating clarity. Her uncle had never merely involved her. He had prepared her to become the shield between himself and justice. You planned to blame me. I planned to protect the family. If someone must answer questions, the younger woman who managed the charity programs will appear far more convincing than the respected chairman. Nkiruka felt the room tilt beneath her. All these years you told me I owed you everything. You do? No. You kept my inheritance, used my name, and made me afraid to live without you. Chief Emeka stepped closer. And now you will do exactly as I say. Give me the list. Go downstairs and tell the guests that the maid manipulated Chigozie because she wanted money. Then Chigozie will publicly clear my name. What if I refuse? He turned the laptop toward her. A prepared statement blamed Nkiruka for every illegal placement. Attached were transfers into her personal account. You will be arrested before the celebration ends. Chigozie will abandon you. The newspapers will destroy your reputation, and every friend downstairs will pretend they never knew you. Nkiruka imagined the cameras, the shame, and the prison cell. For years, fear of losing comfort had governed her choices. She had told herself that survival required silence. Then her phone vibrated. Adesua had sent a photograph from the mansion. Oluchi sat beside a video screen, speaking with Urena at the hospital for the first time since their separation. Mother and daughter were both crying. Beneath the photograph was a message. She keeps asking whether she can go home. Nkiruka looked at the child's face. Chief Emeka extended his hand. The document. Downstairs, the ballroom filled with applause as Chigozie approached the stage for the first formal speech. He delayed asking the musicians to play another song. In the security room, Uche watched the suite camera. Nkiruka has been inside for 20 minutes. We cannot enter without a lawful reason, Namdi said. Ifunanya stood near the elevator. She understood that Nkiruka might be their only path to the evidence, but she also remembered the necklace hidden in her wardrobe and the threats against Obinna. Compassion did not erase accountability. The elevator doors opened. Chief Emeka's lawyer stepped out and entered the ballroom alone. Upstairs, Nkiruka removed the envelope from beneath her shawl. Her uncle smiled. Good. You are finally thinking clearly. She placed it on the table but kept one hand over it. Where is the digital backup? His smile vanished. Why, if I am going to protect you, I need to know nothing remains that could contradict our story. Chief Emeka studied her, then nodded toward the finance director. The man opened a secure website on the laptop and inserted a small access card. Nkiruka watched him type the password. Inside the security room, an investigator saw activity appear on the monitored Foundation account. "We have a live connection," he said. "The archive is being accessed." Files began copying under legal authorization. Contracts, passport scans, payment records, photographs, destinations. The evidence they needed was finally appearing. But inside the suite, Chief Emeka noticed a warning flashing on the screen. Someone is tracing the account. He turned toward Nkiruka. "You brought them here." Nkiruka snatched the envelope from the table. Chief Emeka grabbed her wrist. "Give it to me." She looked at the door, then at the laptop containing proof that could rescue the missing children. For the first time in her life, no one could make the choice for her. If she protected herself, Oluchi and the other children might remain trapped. If she exposed her uncle, she would also expose herself. Nkiruka tightened her hand around the envelope and screamed for help. Nkiruka's scream reached the hotel corridor. Ifunanya ran toward the suite, while Uche alerted the investigators downstairs. Before she reached the door, Chief Emeka's lawyer stepped from the elevator and blocked her path. "This is a private family matter." A woman just screamed. The lawyer moved closer. "Return to the ballroom." Ifunanya refused to move. Behind the door came the sound of breaking glass. Hotel security arrived with Namdi and demanded access. When no one answered, a manager used the master key. Inside, Nkiruka stood against the wall, clutching her injured wrist. The envelope remained in her hand, but Chief Emeka and his finance director were gone. A service door near the bedroom hung open. The laptop had been smashed against the floor. "Where is he?" Namdi asked. Nkiruka pointed toward the service staircase. Security officers searched the floor's garage and kitchen exits, but Chief Emeka had already disappeared into the hotel's crowded conference wing. A vehicle registered to one of his companies left the rear entrance minutes later. The financial investigators had copied only part of the digital archive before the connection was severed. They recovered several travel documents and payment records, but many destination files remained encrypted. Nkiruka handed Namdi the envelope. Inside was the list bearing 7 children's names, including Oluchi's. Beside each name appeared a code, a payment amount, and a planned destination. Her signature was written across the final page. "I did not understand what this was when I signed it," she said. Namdi examined her carefully. "But you understood enough when you hid it." Nkiruka lowered her eyes. Chigozie entered the suite. When he saw the red marks on her wrist, concern crossed his face, but it did not restore the trust between them. "Did Emeka hurt you?" "He tried to take the document. Why did you bring it to him?" She could not answer. Guests downstairs had begun asking questions, and rumors spread through the ballroom. Chigozie instructed the musicians to continue playing, while Namdi moved Nkiruka to a private meeting room. "If Chief Emeka realizes we recovered part of the archive, he may destroy whatever remains," Namdi said. "We need the original records." Nkiruka stared at the table. "I do not know where they are." Ifunanya had remained silent until then. "Yes, you do." Nkiruka looked up sharply. "You knew about the school bag," Ifunanya continued. "You knew your uncle would come tonight, and you asked him where the digital backup was, because you understood how he hides evidence. You think you know everything about me, because you worked in my house. No. I know what your choices did to Oluchi." Nkiruka stood. "Leave me alone." Ifunanya did not move. Chigozie and Namdi exchanged a glance, then stepped outside, allowing the 2 women to speak privately. For a moment, only distant music could be heard. "You hate me," Nkiruka said. "I hated what you did. I still do." "Then why are you here? Because Oluchi does not have time for us to protect our pride." Nkiruka laughed bitterly. "You think courage is simple because you have nothing to lose." Ifunanya's face tightened. "I nearly lost my brother. I lost my job, my home, and my name when you called me a thief. Poverty does not mean a person has nothing to lose. It means losing anything can destroy everything. Nkiruka looked away. If I confess, she whispered, I may go to prison. You may. Chigozie will never forgive me. He may not. My friends, my family, everyone downstairs. Oluchi's mother had no friends in that ballroom. She had no lawyer, no company, and no one answering her calls. Yet she still deserves her daughter. The truth carried no cruelty, which made it harder for Nkiruka to resist. Ifunanya removed the blue thread bracelet from beneath her sleeve and placed it on the table. Oluchi made this for me because she believed I was brave, but she was the brave one. She spoke after adults taught her that silence was the price of her mother's medicine. Nkiruka touched the bracelet. Ifunanya continued, You were afraid of Chief Emeka. I understand that now, but every time you obeyed him, your fear became someone else's suffering. Tears slid down Nkiruka's face. My father died when I was 19, she said. Chief Emeka took control of everything. He told me I was foolish, careless, and incapable of surviving alone. Whenever I questioned him, he showed me papers I had signed and said one mistake could send me to prison. He trapped you. Yes, but you later helped him trap others. Nkiruka covered her face and began to cry. I told myself the children were receiving opportunities. When I saw Oluchi frightened, I knew something was wrong. I still locked the door. I threatened you because you were willing to see what I refused to face. Ifunanya allowed the confession to settle. Where are the original records? Nkiruka wiped her eyes. Chief Emeka keeps a private office beneath his house in Lekki. The entrance is hidden behind the wine cellar. He told everyone the room contains family documents, but I saw children's passports there once. Can we enter? The door uses his fingerprint and a 6-digit code. Do you know the code? Nkiruka nodded. My father's birthday. She also revealed that Chief Emeka kept a second phone inside a locked desk containing messages with foreign clients and local recruiters. The burned foundation office had been a distraction. The true records were stored beneath his home. Ifunanya opened the door and called Namdi inside. Nkiruka repeated everything. Namdi immediately contacted the investigators and requested an emergency search warrant. It may take several hours, he warned. We do not have several hours, Nkiruka said. My uncle knows I betrayed him. He will go there first. Chigozie studied her. Will you testify? Her voice shook. Yes, even if the evidence implicates you. Yes. This was not redemption. It was only the first honest decision she had made, and everyone in the room understood that accountability would still follow. Namdi received confirmation that officers were being dispatched to Chief Emeka's residence. Meanwhile, Uche returned with troubling news. The vehicle that left the hotel was found abandoned near the expressway. Where is Chief Emeka? Chigozie asked. No one knows. Nkiruka turned pale. He has another driver and a private entrance at the Lekki house. The investigators prepared to leave, but Chigozie had another responsibility. Hundreds of guests waited downstairs, including donors whose money might have funded Chief Emeka's scheme. He could no longer allow the celebration to continue as a disguise. Nkiruka looked toward the ballroom doors. What will you tell them? The truth we can prove. And our engagement. Chigozie removed the engagement ring from his pocket. Nkiruka had left it in the suite during the struggle. There is no engagement. Pain crossed her face, but she nodded. Before they could enter the ballroom, Namdi's phone rang. Officers had reached Chief Emeka's Lekki residence. The wine cellar was open. The hidden office was empty. Every passport contract and hard drive had been removed. On the desk, however, they found a printed program for the engagement celebration. One section had been circled in red the moment Chigozie was scheduled to address the guests. Chief Emeka had not fled Lagos. He was returning to the ballroom. The music stopped at 9:45. Guests turned toward the stage as Chigozie stepped behind the microphone. Nkiruka stood several feet away without her engagement ring. Ifunanya remained near the side entrance with Namdi and the investigators. Across the ballroom, whispers spread. Chigozie looked at the flowers' cameras and smiling portraits, prepared to celebrate a future that no longer existed. "Thank you for coming," he began. "Tonight was meant to honor an engagement. It will instead reveal why that engagement has ended." The room became silent. Nkiruka lowered her head as photographers raised their cameras. For several months, Chigozie continued a foundation connected to members of Nkiruka's family, offered medical aid to vulnerable parents. Some families were persuaded to send their children away in exchange for treatment or education. Several of those children have not returned home. Chief Emeka's lawyer rose from his table. "These are reckless accusations. They are supported by family testimonies, financial transfers, travel documents, and records recovered tonight." The lawyer moved toward the exit, but investigators stopped him. Chigozie displayed a scanned page from the church ledger on the ballroom screen. 7 children's names appeared beside the dates they left their communities. Guests murmured in disbelief. Then the rear doors opened. Chief Emeka entered. He wore a charcoal suit instead of his ceremonial clothing, and rain marked one shoulder. He walked into the ballroom with the confidence of a man who believed reputation could overpower evidence. "What an unfortunate performance," he said. He approached the stage while 2 officers moved behind him. "You are accusing a respected charity because a dishonest servant filled your mind with lies." His eyes found Ifunanya. "There she is. A maid who stole from your fiancé, manipulated a frightened child, and demanded money for her family." Ifunanya felt hundreds of people turn toward her. This was how men like Chief Emeka survived. They placed shame upon those with the least power to resist it. Chigozie answered calmly. "The theft accusation was fabricated. According to whom Nkiruka raised her head? According to me." The crowd reacted with shock. Chief Emeka stared at his niece. "Be careful. I planted the necklace in Ifunanya's room," she said, her voice trembling through the microphone. "I threatened her brother's treatment. I also hid Oluchi inside Chigozie's mansion because my uncle ordered me to." Reporters pushed closer to the stage. Chief Emeka's face hardened. "My niece is emotionally unstable. She has always struggled under pressure." Nkiruka flinched at the familiar attack, but she continued. "He controlled my inheritance and used my signatures on foundation documents. I knew some children were being sent to work, but I refused to admit what was happening. I am responsible for my silence and for the harm I caused." Chief Emeka turned to leave. The investigators blocked the aisle. "You are not under arrest yet," one officer said, "but you are required to remain for questioning." He smiled. "Then question me. You have no original contracts, no passports, and no proof that any child crossed a border illegally." He knew the hidden office had been emptied. For one terrible moment, the ballroom seemed to bend in his favor. Then, Namdi received a message from the officers at the Lekki residence. He read it twice and whispered to Chigozie. Chigozie returned to the microphone. "You removed the records from your hidden office tonight." Chief Emeka laughed. "What records?" "The ones your driver transported in a hotel catering van." His smile disappeared. Security footage appeared on the screen. It showed Chief Emeka's private driver entering the Grand Atlantic's loading area with several sealed boxes shortly before the celebration. The van had been stopped at the hotel's service gate after Uche recognized the driver. Investigators opened the ballroom doors and carried in one of the boxes. Inside were passports, thumb-printed agreements, payment ledgers, and photographs of children standing beside the families who had received them. Chief Emeka stepped backward. "This proves nothing. The families consented." "No." A woman's voice answered from the doorway. You lied to us. Urena entered in a wheelchair accompanied by Adesua and a hospital nurse. Her doctor had approved the supervised journey to Lagos after investigators asked her to identify the documents. Behind her came Mama Ebele, the church elder, Okechukwu, and 4 other parents from affected communities. Urena held up the agreement bearing her thumbprint. You said this paper would bring treatment. You did not tell me it would turn my daughter's life into a debt. Chief Emeka pointed toward Ifunanya. That maid taught them what to say. She wants compensation. Ifunanya walked to the center of the ballroom. I asked for nothing. You expect these people to believe you risked your employment for a stranger's child. She was not a stranger when she asked for water. The simple answer quieted the room. Chief Emeka looked toward the gathered donors. I gave those families opportunities. Their children lived in homes they could never afford to enter. They were workers without freedom, Namdi replied. Your records show payments made to the foundation for each placement. None of that money reached the families as promised. An investigator opened another ledger. It contained client names, travel routes, and fees. 2 missing children had already been located through addresses recovered from the digital archive. International authorities were tracing the others. Chief Emeka's composure finally began to crack. The parents signed. They were deceived, Nnamdi said. The children agreed. No, another voice said. Oluchi stood at the ballroom entrance. Adesua had brought her from a protected room only after confirming that the hall was secure. The child wore a clean blue dress, and the thread bracelet she had made for Ifunanya was now tied around her own wrist. Urena covered her mouth. Oluchi. The girl saw her mother and ran. Urena opened her arms, gathering her daughter against her chest. Their cries filled the ballroom with a truth no document could express: the cost of every stolen day. Chief Emeka turned his face away. Oluchi looked at the officers. He told me Mama would die if I did not obey. He took my school bag and said another family had paid for me. Chief Emeka pointed at her. A child can be coached. Oluchi trembled but continued. I heard him tell Auntie Nkiruka that poor mothers would believe anything when their children were hungry. The sentence was one Nkiruka also remembered. She confirmed hearing it at the mansion. Chief Emeka lunged toward the stage microphone, demanding that the event be stopped. Officers restrained him without violence and informed him that he was being detained for questioning connected to fraud, coercion, unlawful child placement, destruction of records, and witness intimidation. As they led him away, he shouted that Nkiruka and Ifunanya had conspired against him. No one followed. The ballroom was no longer a celebration. Parents studied the recovered files, hoping to find their children's names. Donors demanded to know how their money had been used. Reporters recorded every confession. Chigozie stepped away from the stage and approached Ifunanya. You were the first person in my house willing to tell the truth. She watched Oluchi resting in Urena's arms. No, sir. Oluchi told the truth first. I only believed her. Across the room, Nkiruka surrendered her phone and handbag to investigators. She knew her testimony would not erase her actions. As officers opened the final box, they discovered photographs of 11 more children. The case was far larger than anyone had imagined. Justice had entered the ballroom, but its work was only beginning. 6 months after the engagement celebration, the gates of the Okafor mansion stood open beneath the Lagos morning sun. Oluchi walked through them, holding Urena's hand. The child no longer lowered her voice when adults entered a room. Her body had grown stronger, and she was attending a new school near her mother's home in Umudaike. Urena's treatment had stabilized her condition, allowing her to return to basket making with support from a women's cooperative. They had not come to remember the lock study. They had come to see Ifunanya. Inside the garden, families from several communities gathered beneath white canopies. 9 of the missing children had been safely reunited with relatives. 2 remained abroad, while legal authorities completed their return. Investigators had also identified other children through the records recovered at the hotel. Chief Emeka remained in custody awaiting trial. The evidence against him included fraudulent agreements, illegal payments, intimidation, destruction of records, and his role in unlawfully placing children with private households. Several associates had also been charged. Justice had not arrived quickly or perfectly. Some children carried fear that would take years to heal. Some parents blamed themselves for believing promises made during desperate moments. Adesuwa reminded them that responsibility belonged to those who had turned illness and poverty into weapons. Nkiruka had pleaded guilty to offenses connected to concealment, intimidation, and falsified accusations. Her cooperation helped investigators locate children and recover money from foundation accounts, but it did not free her from consequences. She received a sentence that included supervised custody, financial restitution, and long-term community service. Before leaving for the correctional program, she requested one meeting with Ifunanya. They met in a quiet room at Namdi's office. Nkiruka looked different, without expensive clothes or carefully applied makeup. She placed a handwritten letter on the table. "This is an apology to you and Obina. I know words cannot restore what I tried to take from you." Ifunanya did not reach for the letter immediately. "I forgive you enough to refuse hatred," she said. "But forgiveness does not mean pretending the harm never happened. I understand." "Do you?" Nkiruka lowered her eyes. "I am beginning to." She admitted that losing her engagement and reputation had once seemed like the worst possible outcome. Only after listening to the reunited families did she understand that the children had lost something more valuable, the right to feel safe with the people they loved. "If I had spoken when I first knew something was wrong, much of this could have been stopped." Ifunanya finally accepted the letter. "Then spend the rest of your life becoming someone who speaks sooner." Chigozie did not resume the engagement. He wished Nkiruka healing, but he accepted that love without trust could not build a home. He also refused to present himself as the hero of the case. When journalists praised him for rescuing the children, he corrected them. "I returned to a house where the truth was already waiting," he said. Ifunanya risked everything to protect it. Oluchi found the courage to speak it. Their families refused to let it be buried. Chigozie offered Ifunanya money, a house, and a senior position within his company. She declined the gifts that felt too much like payment for her humanity. Instead, she proposed something else. Using recovered foundation assets and independent donations, they established the Urena Family Protection Center, governed by social workers, community representatives, and legal advocates, rather than Chigozie alone. It provided medical guidance to vulnerable parents, verified employment and education offers, and helped families report exploitation without fear. Ifunanya accepted a paid role as a community liaison while returning to school to study nursing and social welfare, the education she had abandoned years earlier. Chigozie supported the center, but he never treated Ifunanya as someone he had lifted from poverty. He treated her as a partner whose courage had shown him where his own influence should serve. Obinya's heart procedure was successful. On the day he left the hospital, he carried the engineering textbook he had read during his illness. Ifunanya waited outside with Mama Ngozi Chigozie and several market traders who had stood beside her in the rain. "You kept your promise," Obina said. "So did you," she replied. "You survived." Now beneath the garden canopy, Oluchi ran toward Ifunanya and wrapped her arms around her. "Mama says I can become a doctor one day. You can become anything built from truth and hard work." Oluchi pointed toward the mansion. "Do you still work here?" Ifunanya looked at Chigozie and smiled. "No, I work where doors are meant to be opened." Urena joined them, carrying a basket she had woven herself. She gave it to Ifunanya, who discovered the words, "Courage returns," stitched into its pattern. Around them, reunited families shared food. Children laughed, and people once separated by fear began learning how to belong to one another again. Chigozie stood beneath the jacaranda tree, where he had once imagined a perfect marriage. He now understood that a beautiful life could not be built by protecting appearances. It had to be built by listening when the quietest person in the room dared to speak. The mansion had once hidden a child's cries. That morning it carried her laughter through every open door. Some of life's greatest injustices survive not because no one sees them, but because fear persuades good people to remain silent. It tells the poor that their voices do not matter, the powerful that reputation matters more than truth, and the guilty that one more lie can protect everything they have built. Ifunanya possessed no wealth title or influence. What she had was compassion strong enough to resist fear. She did not help Oluchi because she expected a reward. She helped because a frightened child needed water safety and someone who would return after promising to do so. Chigozie learned that kindness requires more than generosity. It requires listening without judging a person by status. And Kiruka learned that being controlled does not excuse helping another person become a victim. Healing began only when truth and accountability were allowed to stand together. Real justice cannot erase every wound. It can, however, return names to those treated like numbers, reunite families separated by greed, and create safer paths for those who come afterward. If this story touched you, tell us what moment stayed in your heart. Do you believe Ifunanya was right to risk everything for Oluchi? Share your thoughts in the comments. Please subscribe to the channel, like this video, and share it with someone who needs a reminder that one courageous voice can open a door fear tried to keep locked.